Hi, George.
Hello.
We're going to get started here in just a minute.
No problem. Hey, Sam, can I ask you a question? I'm filling out this Metro List subscriber application. When I refer to KW Sacramento, do I have to spell it out?
Yeah, when you fill it out, do Keller Williams Sacramento Metro.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi.
Hey, Sam, can I ask you another question?
Hey, George, go ahead.
When it comes to, I lost it. Never mind. I'll shoot you an email or text.
I'm right, George, I'm right here. I'm just messing with the Zoom. I'm right here.
All right, hang on.
Hot dance. Too hot, hot dance.
Sam, when this MLS asks me for my office address, I use the Truxell Road or my home address?
No, your office address is the Truxell address.
All right, and should I put down the office phone number too in the office, ask me for my office number?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Hi, Ara.
Hey. Is that Sam?
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Let me turn on my volume. I can't hear. There we go. Wait a minute. I'm gonna check.
I was gonna pop this, but I realized they're probably so hard to check.
It's been waking me up.
Hey.
Hi. Hello. Hi. Hi. How are you? Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's up with the Zoom?
Well, you have to.
Oh, I gotta do the thingy?
Yeah, just do, can you come get the camera? Yeah. You have Ara, Gary, George, Helen, Lamont, and Ronice all in Zoom.
What is it?
Oh, wait. Yep. You're all in.
I was thinking about you too.
Oh, this one?
Huh? We lost you. No, I actually am over. So I'm over the current apartment.
There we go.
And I ended up finding a so I've been going in every day. And I am thinking about a back. If I could be around the world more. Not shitty. You gotta talk to them.
Like hourly basis, like
Money. Hi, everybody.
started here. First things first, we need to thank Home River Group and Brian Fitzgerald because he has provided lunch. The lunch is not here though. You're probably thinking like, what did he provide?
Yeah.
What did he provide? It'll be here. It's gonna be here in the middle of class.
It is. It's on its way. He let me know that he was having problems with the delivery. Brian wasn't able to make it. He works for a property management group, and he did not anticipate the last day of the month being this busy for him.
Interesting. Okay, so thank you, Brian. We appreciate the lunch when it gets here, and for you sponsoring our Lunch and Learn. I'm assuming that it will be put over there. We will take like a 5-minute break to do the lunch thing, but I got a lot of material to cover. It's a 2-hour class. So let's like get into it. Hi, everybody on Zoom. Can we put them up on the thing? Yeah. Oh my gosh, look at this. Thanks, guys, for showing up for me. Makes somebody feel good, you know? Okay. Oh, yeah, that's good. Dang, Lindsay's on here? Whew, I feel real good. Okay.
Hey.
Hey. Okay, will you click on these? Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. So today we're going to talk about, my class is called Win the Listing Every Time. And I actually made this class from 2 different classes. One was Win with Sellers, and the other was a DISC class. And I wanted to combine them because I use the DISC profile to engage with people at their level. And if I understand their personality type, then I can hopefully, in spite of myself, show up a bit different or how they need me to show up so I can connect with them properly, right? So first we're going to talk about when you're working with sellers, how do you win with them so much so that they refer all of their other friends and family to you and they come back to you repeatedly. And then that's what we're going to do for the first hour. Last hour, all DISC personality types and how do we connect those? How do we connect with those people? What do we say? What words do you need to use with them in order to understand, in order to reach them on their level? And then also, what is their level? Like, right? Okay, so let's move forward. Why do I get to teach this class? And if you don't know who I am, I'm Amy Tremaine. I own Main Street Coaching, which is the productivity coaching program for 3 different market centers. I have a real estate business as well. I've been in business since 2014. And the most important piece is that before 2021, I was primarily buyer heavy. So my business was about 80% buyers. I actually didn't list property that often. When I did a really great job. And because of that, in 2021, when I opened my coaching business and I didn't have time to take buyers out to show property all the time, I had to do listings. I didn't have a choice. If I didn't do listings, my real estate business would have dropped off completely. And I was able to shift that business from being 80% buyers to being 80% sellers. So last year, I closed 15 deals and 4 of them were buyers. The year before, I closed 16 deals and 4 of them were listings. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So how did I do that? What do you need to focus on in order to make sure that you can list property at a high level is your own mindset. We're going to cover some of that. But your mindset is the number one thing that is standing in your way of doing whatever you want to do, including listing properties. And you're probably thinking, I'm a brand new agent. I've never listed a property before. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do it. I should help a buyer. Never helped somebody buy a property before either. Right? You can do listings. From being a buyer heavy real estate agent for most of my career, my first 2 deals were listings. I had never done any real estate sales before, and so I didn't know the difference between doing a buyer or a listing, right? I eventually moved on to buyers because why? There's a plethora of buyers out there, and you can collect them like playing cards, right? They're just always available, and listings are rare. You have to interview for a listing versus interviewing for a buyer, right? I'm here to tell you that mindset is actually wrong. It's actually wrong. 75% of people only meet with one agent. So that means that if you meet with somebody, you have a 75% chance that they're only going to work with you. And that goes for buyers or sellers. So it's not easier to work with buyers or easier to work with sellers necessarily from the standpoint of converting them, because 75% of people are only going to meet with one person. So as long as you set up appointments with sellers, 75% of the time you're going to convert them. It's the same with buyers as long as you set appointments. Now, I'll tell you what is easier between listings and buyers is the work the agent has to put in after you've secured the listing. So after you've secured a buyer listing, there's a ton of work that goes into it, right? And that work includes a lot of physical labor, like driving around and showing property. And you might not always get that buyer in contract right away, right? So it could be 30 to 90 to 60 days out, and you could be doing that driving. So the cost of sale is higher, wouldn't you say? Because you're spending gas and time. Listings have an upfront cost because you've got pictures and lockbox and signage and marketing. However, the labor after in contract is very little from the agent. You put that thing on the market, you get in the contract, and then you wait for it to close. In so little words, right? So working with listings right now is easier labor. You can have as many listings as you want in your arsenal, and you could have 50 listings. Could you have 50 buyers?
Not by yourself.
No, you can't have 50 buyers, right? You're probably going to be limited to about 5 if you don't want to go crazy. So listings are where it's at. Not only right now, but is a buyer a guaranteed paycheck?
No.
Is a listing?
Yes.
If you get that listing on the market, it's a guarantee that you're probably going to get it sold nowadays, right? Okay, so you have to change your mindset a bit about how you're looking at working with sellers. Motivation mining and asking great questions. This is a major focus. We're going to go into this more in depth in a moment. You want to be creative in your approach. You need to stand out. There's lots of other agents in the market, and we're going to talk about how do I stand out when I talk with sellers. And then the treasure, the real treasure, is in the follow-up. So we're going to talk more about following that too. All right, let's talk about your mindset. You have got to work on, the number one thing that you can work on as a human being in general is a positive mindset. And the mindset that top agents have is created. It's created every day. It's not something that they were born with. It's not something that they just magically received one day. It doesn't matter what brokerage you're at. It doesn't matter what's going on at home. It doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. Their mindset is created by their daily habits and their thoughts and their actions, right? Their values, what they stand for. So the steps to success from a top agent is it starts with affirmations. What are the things that you're telling yourself? Does anybody use affirmations here? Does anyone want to share an affirmation that they use when it comes to being a real estate agent? I'll share some. I will. I'll share. I know it's weird to share our innermost thoughts and feelings. I'm a great real estate agent. I learned that from Bold. Bold taught me to say to myself, I'm a great real estate agent. Isn't that funny? So simple. But how much does that entail? I'm a great real estate agent. That means that I show up every day. In my mind, I started to picture, what does a great real estate agent do? If I say every day I'm a great real estate agent, what does that mean to me? I'm a great salesperson. That's another bold one. I'm a great salesperson. I'm a great salesperson. I'm a great salesperson. That's what we used to do in Bold. You guys are lucky you don't have to do that Bold anymore. But it's something that I practiced. And before I step inside of a house, before I meet with a buyer, you guys don't see it. Before I meet with an agent, before I meet with all of you in a coaching, I say to myself, I'm a great coach. I am valuable. I am a great coach. And I have to say it every time. Otherwise, I will walk into that situation with whatever else is going on in my mind. And what else could be going on in my mind? A lot. Everything that you have going on in your mind. All the stressors of life. Single momdom. single woman business ownerdom, you know, like all the things that could come down on me, I have to separate from in that moment. And I have to say, I'm a great coach. So you've got to do the same exact thing, and top agents do the same exact thing with their business. And it does not matter what is going on outside of this, you are a great real estate agent. And if you can separate that, then you can have massive focus, right? Because what gets in our way most? What gets in our way the most when we're working on our real estate business?
Ourselves.
Oh, mine. Your mind. Monkey talk. Monkey mind. They used to call it a monkey mind. Yeah, yourself. What else gets in the way? And if you're on Zoom, you can unmute and tell me what gets in your way when you're sitting down to work on your real estate business.
Your limiting beliefs.
Okay. What,
I mean,
not just our mindset, what physically gets in your way?
oh,
Distractions.
Distractions. What kind of distractions? I love kids.
Family, kids.
Bye.
Lunch
My-
being provided.
Lunch being provided.
Sam distracting.
Sam distracted. Okay. Okay, so life, sickness. Does sickness get in your way? Oh, I don't feel good today.
Yeah.
I'm a little sick. Okay.
pandemic.
So, pandemic. So sickness, kids, family. I like to call these emergencies.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to me because I can almost guarantee that when you all had a job, you had very little emergencies. And then when those emergencies came up and you had no sick time, you didn't have any emergency. Somebody else had that emergency, right? But then you get into real estate and all of a sudden, oh, I can't make it to that class because I got this other thing. Or, oh, I didn't get to my lead gen today because my kids, and oh, I didn't feel very good today, so I didn't do my lead gen. Right?
Yes.
That's mindset. That's a mindset. I do not have that option. My mindset, I don't get that. My kids sick? Well, you better call somebody else to go pick them up. And I own my own businesses. I don't feel good? Cool. I'm the only person that makes the money. So it doesn't really matter if I don't feel good. I get to keep going. Am I making sense here?
Yes.
Yeah. We stand in our way. We stand in our way way more than we stand, or physically way more than we stand in our way mentally. I do. It starts right here, but you have to make your business and the drive to get sellers, the drive to go door knocking, the drive to call your sphere, you have to make that a non-negotiable, and that's a top agent mindset. First, they tell themselves that they're amazing and wonderful and awesome, and then they back it up with their actions. Because you can't tell yourself that you're an awesome real estate agent unless you're out there doing real estate stuff, right? Otherwise, you'll feel like you're lying to yourself. So you got to back that stuff up with action. I can't say that I'm an awesome real estate coach unless I'm coaching the agents and showing up when they need me, right? Okay. Environmental control. Environmental control, windy weather, yeah. Environmental control, okay. What do you guys think this means?
Kind of like your space where you're working and being able to control, like limiting the distractions that you have to keep yourself on task.
I love it. Yes. Controlling your environment, eliminating distractions to keep yourself on task. Absolutely. What else is a environmental control? What does that mean to you when you see it? Besides the EPA. Oh, it's not- What about the environment that you control for your clients? So not only do top agents control their environment, right? So top agents have an office. Maybe they have an office at home. They have a designated working space, eliminated from distractions, right? Top agents have set their calendar time block. They've created a time block and they've calendared around it. Top agents know that there will be emergencies and they plan ahead of time. So if I know that there's a potential that I have to work today, I have something to do today, and my kid's at school, and there's a potential that something could happen and they'll need to get picked up, what's going to happen? What plan do I have so that way I can keep working and I can plan for these emergencies? Who do I know that I can ask to be an emergency contact? Does that make sense?
Yes.
They're planning ahead. I know that I have a really hard time sitting down at a computer and getting anything done. Right? I know that about myself. So I know that when I go to sit down to do my lead generation, I'm going to come up with an excuse of something else that I need to get done because I don't want to sit down. So what could I do in order to prevent my mind, my monkey mind, from taking over and making me go do other things?
Standing desk.
I was thinking the same thing.
You said time block.
Time blocking?
You said
Okay, I
time block.
time block and I have distractions
How is
around me.
schedule set up?
Standing desk?
Using mobile.
Okay.
Do it in the car. You're not
Use
fully
the
focused,
KW
but you
app,
can.
do it in the car. Okay. So you guys are getting it. A top agent knows themselves well enough to know where they're going to fall. They know themselves well enough to know where they're going to fall short, and then they plan accordingly. I am constantly talking past my appointment times. I have a calendar, I have a phone. I'm like, what's going on here? I constantly do it. So you know what I asked Melinda? Melinda, you got to come and interrupt me. You have to interrupt me. I'm having a hard time doing it. I need you to come and interrupt me. She's like, you have a phone. And I loved her for saying that to me because it was accountability. It was like, you have a phone. But I know myself well enough that I'm obviously not using that. So I need to put something in place that prevents me, right? Until y'all have a Melinda, until you have someone amazing in your life to hold you accountable to these things, you have to be that person for yourself. So you need to look at yourself and figure out, where are my pitfalls? Where am I going to fall short? Stop lying to yourself about being comfortable with lead generation. Start getting real about how it makes you feel and analyze it, and then put things in place to make you feel better. Learn scripts that make you feel better about making the phone call. Right? Make sense? Okay. Evidence. Look for evidence of past successes in your life and past strengths. Right? So you need to look for evidence of success and past strengths in your life and pull from that. Every agent that enters into my coaching program gets a KPA done on them, right? And when I sit down with you, I say, this is a strengths finder. We are trying to find your strength. And then I look through it and I say, here's what you need to play on. This is the most important. This is what you're really good at. Let's play on that. When we talk to you about lead generation activities and what you should be doing, we look for things in your personality that put us in the right direction of what would you like to do. And we'll get into personality types a little bit later, but we do that. We use the DISC profile and we kind of analyze you. We use the KPA and we analyze you. This is what you'd like to do. You would love open houses because you like to talk to people. You like meeting with people. You like interacting with others. You would love open houses. People that are more transactional would like cold calling, internet leads, because they just want to get to it, right? So look for your strengths and play on your strengths. Confidence through education. All the top agents that I know, including, but all the top agents that I know are constantly learning. They're seeking out outside help, outside of themselves, outside of Keller Williams, within Keller Williams. Keller Williams has a huge framework of training. If you think Keller Williams was only built to train new agents, you're selling it short because it continues to build me. I continue to take classes that help me get better at running businesses. And that's what you're doing. You are now running a business, okay? So your education should be a big piece of your daily habits. Either reading, listening, podcasts, Audible. How many books do you read a year? Do you have that on a list, right? Are you doing that? I like to ask ahead of time, do you read when I first meet agents? Because I'm wondering if they're education based or if maybe they've been stagnant for a while. And then we want to reintroduce reading into your life because it's a beautiful thing. You can educate yourself if you read 12 books a year on corporations or taxes or marketing or converting leads, sales, negotiations. That's how I learned what I do from books when I go to college. I think I've told you guys, I'm working on a GED here. So I only have that availability to read, right? And you can do that too. Okay. Scripts and role play. Top agents know their scripts and they role play them. And if they don't have a partner, it doesn't matter. They have themselves. One thing that I think is a huge crutch is needing somebody else to help you get to where you want to go. That's a mindset that you have to change right now. Because as much as Keller Williams and all of the agents here want to support you, they don't always have time to lead you down the path. You have to go down the path. So if you have to script and role play in the mirror at your house with yourself, you should be doing that. This business is for you. It's for you. And you are the captain of the ship, right? You cannot wait for someone else. You cannot. Okay. And then, of course, consistency. They do this consistently. Do it consistently. So they're consistently doing affirmations. They're consistently controlling their environment. They're consistently looking for their evidence of success, looking for evidence that they're doing the right thing. They're getting educated and they're practicing and they're doing it all on a consistent basis. Okay. Whenever I want to stop something or start something, the environmental control is the most important piece. And right now for you guys, you're starting a new habit. This new habit is being a business owner and lead generating or whatever else you need to do. These are your new habits. So you've got to be very consistent and you've got to remove distractions and control your environment to the umpteenth level. That means if you need to silence notifications on your phone for the next 2 hours so you can make phone calls, then that's what you'll need to do, right? Set barricades in place. Put snacks in your office. Have drinks and snacks in the office. I'm classic. Classic Amy is sit down to do something. I'm thirsty. Go get a drink. And then I'm out. I'm going to get a drink. You'll see like 6 drinks on my desk. And that's me not controlling my getting up and doing stuff. And then I'm like, oh, I need to get that thing done I haven't done yet. Busy getting drinks. Okay, so let's move on and talk about what kind of sellers do we want to start working with. If you guys want to get up and get some food, you can. I'm just going to keep going. Okay, there's sandwiches right there. All right, so what type of seller are you meeting with? So we have a diagram here, and we've got in the top left, motivated and reasonable. Of course, these are the people that we want to meet with. These are the people that are like, hey, I need to list my house right now. Yes, I will listen to you about listing price. Yes, the house is in great condition, or I will make any repairs that need to be made. And these are reasonable and motivated sellers.
Hello.
Hello. Take them all off right now so that way we don't have to hear them. Sorry, guys, on Zoom. Hold on 1 second. There's just some extra noise. If you need help with how do I find out if a seller is motivated and reasonable, we're going to go over some questions. In the packet, there's actually a list of a lot of questions. Now, also, if you've ever gone through the Ignite program, in the Ignite toolkit is a pre-listing questionnaire. It's a great questionnaire that you can use to ask the seller questions to find out if they are motivated and reasonable. Okay? Yes, you need to meet with them. Those are the people that we spend our time on. Then just below it, or sorry, right next to it, let's go right next to it. We've got motivated and not reasonable. So motivated, yes, I want to sell my home, but I want $100,000 over what every other home is selling for. I like to meet with those people because there might be a way for me to logically talk them back to reality. So yes, I will meet with them. And here's a hint for you guys. If you're new to this business, or you're trying a new script, or you're wanting some practice, meet with everybody. Set the appointment and meet with them. Because I would rather practice on somebody who's a no, who's not reasonable and not motivated. I would rather practice on them and mess up a little bit than practice on a motivated and reasonable person. Does that make sense? I say this for working with buyers too. Like, take every appointment you can, do not discriminate, and just practice. Practice. You might actually find that you get more deals out of it. I probably turned down some deals as an experienced agent because I pre-qualified them and then like, oh, maybe not. Just being honest. Like, so take every lead you can. All right, so but as you start to move into this business and you have a lot of and you have business and you don't have a lot of time, you have to make sure that you're giving your time to the right people. It breaks my heart so much when agents come in and they're like working on this seller and they just or a client in general, and they're holding on to this client. They're holding on to this one client, and they're one of these, either not reasonable or not motivated, and they're holding on just because that person is talking to them. Don't do that to yourself. Be logical with your business. Understand if they are being unreasonable or if they are being unmotivated, and cut your loss. Keep them in your database. Keep following up with them. Keep them as a client, but don't spend a ton of time focused on them. Spend your time going out and finding new business. Okay. So not motivated. Now on the bottom half, we've got not motivated and reasonable. Yes, I will meet with these people because they are reasonable about selling their home, and I can drum up motivation. In fact, we're going to talk about motivation mining, which is asking questions to find motivation. And then there's not motivated and not reasonable. No, don't spend your time with those people. If they know I don't have to move, yeah, I'll move if I get $1 million. Well, thank you. Have a nice day. Right? However, those are great people to practice on. You want to know why? Because they're going to give you the hardest time that anyone will ever give you in a listing appointment. And do you know what that means that you get?
Better.
You get thicker skin. You get the thicker skin. And you can take and practice all of your seller objections, and I bet you'll get all of them on one person if you just do a one appointment with a non-motivated and non-reasonable. I've been on these appointments because when I was a new agent, I took every appointment. I didn't get into the habit of pre-qualifying because I wasn't getting educated on that. It was not enough. And I went on a ton of these, and I have very thick skin. And people say crazy things to me, and I just deal with it, right? Okay.
Those people are also going to waste a lot less of your time than the maybes that are unreasonable but motivated.
Yes, not motivated and not reasonable will waste a lot less of your time than the maybes. That's very true. Okay. So let's talk about motivation mining, and what does that mean? So motivation mining is all about asking questions, and I will say questions, whoever is asking the question is leading the conversation. You should be asking your clients the most questions. They should have very little questions. When you're done with your presentation, your clients should have very little questions. Their questions should be, where do I sign? Right? So you want to create presentations that give that. When they leave, you want them to think, wow, that's so thorough. They covered everything. Okay. And you start that appointment to make sure that you cover everything with asking them a lot of questions. And so on the screen, you can see there's some questions up here, and they're in your packet. Do you absolutely need to sell? Absolutely. Like where is the motivation? Do you have to move? Is there something happening that's a must sale? I love those. I love when people get transferred. I love when people have to add a bedroom. Like, that's great. They're selling and they're buying no matter what, right? They have to. Is there anything that would prevent you from selling? This is a great question because they could say, no, there's nothing that could prevent us. Or they could say, yes, if we don't get enough money. Ooh, okay. How much money do you want? And then you can find out what they're thinking. Okay, this is not a question. This is a statement, but this will help you dig deeper if the answer doesn't feel deep enough. However, when you're new, the surface level, you'll get an answer and you'll be like, okay, that's the answer. But it's not the answer. It's not. You'll ask someone, is there anything that would prevent you from selling? No, nothing would prevent us. Okay, tell me more about that. That's going to force them to take a moment to internalize, to start looking for reasons that it would prevent them from selling. And then after they've taken some time to think about it and they answer no, now that's an affirmation. That's an affirmative. That's a no that's solid because they've had time to think about it. Have you ever answered a question just with an answer like that? Okay, everybody does. Everybody answers questions like that because we live in a very quick society. You don't always take the time to sit back and think. So give them time to do that. What will that do for you? I love this. When people say, I need to move, I need to sell, we want to sell our house, we need a bigger house. Okay, what will that do for you? That gets them to describe the benefits of them moving. That's coming from them when they start thinking about the benefits of them moving. They're painting a picture for themselves of their new residence and everything that's going to come along with it that's better than where they're at. What else will that do for you? Love these. Now, I want you to know, these questions, these three, can be asked on the same question that you started with. Does that make sense? We call this a 3 deep needs analysis, or a going 3 deep. So you ask the question, and then you say, okay, tell me more about that. What would that do for you? And then you ask them, what else will that do for you? It will get them to think deeper and deeper and deeper. They'll actually come up with answers that they didn't even know that they had. And it will get you to the real. They're giving you surface level at the top. 3 down, they're giving you their real reason. When we sell the house, where will you go next? Very important question that a lot of us forget to ask. And then you're selling a house, or the house is on the market, and your seller needs to move out of state. That's not lined up yet. So make sure that you know where they're going next. This can also help you get them excited about where they're going next, right? You can explore that. So you can say, when we sell the house, where will you go next? We're going to Texas. Okay, tell me more about that. Well, in Texas, blah, 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 right? Well, what would that do for you? Well, it would give me this and that. Less money. Maybe I have a better paying job. They're going to give you that, right? Well, what else would that do for you? So now they've told you where they're going to go next. They've told you what's happening there, right? Because it said, well, tell me more about that. They're probably going to go into, well, what's happening there. And then you're going to say, well, what would that do for you? Well, that would allow me to do this. So it's going to give you more action. And then you say, what else will that do for you? I can guarantee they're going to get on an emotional level at this point, and they're going to tell you what it's going to do for their heart, their soul, or something like that, right? Because they've ran out of surface level stuff at this point, and they're going to get deeper. I use this in coaching, and I ask people about what they want to achieve. All right, what is important about that move? Well, it's important that I get there because of blah, blah, blah. I'm starting a job at this time, and I've got to be there by this time. And this is really good. So now we've painted this picture. Why do you want to sell? Do you need to? Yes, we absolutely have to. We're going to Texas. Okay, now we're picturing our new life in Texas because they just told you everything it's going to do for them. And then you say, well, what would it look like if we couldn't make a move? Now you're bringing them into pain. Have you ever heard of pain versus pleasure? Okay, it's scientifically proven that people will move away from pain versus moving towards pleasure. So people will move away. That means that if there's a donut over there and there's a spiky pokey thing over there, they're going to move away from the spiky pokey thing regardless if there's a donut. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If there's no spiky pokey thing, they may not even move towards the donut. Okay? So, what would it look like if you couldn't make that move? Now you're touching on the opposite of what they want, the problem. And once you've isolated that problem, you can touch on it later. When they say things like, we don't want to negotiate $300 in repairs. We've done enough. We're not going to move. Oh, okay. Well, $300 in the grand scheme of things versus not getting to your new job, being here, having to stay where you're at, right? You can start touching on that pain point so that they can remember why they're doing this. Any questions about this before I move forward? Are any of you already asking these questions during your appointments? Sherry knows. Okay. All right, here's some more. This is my favorite. How will that make you feel? Or how do you feel? I use this with buyers all the time. When we get into a house, I don't ask them like, how do you feel about this house? How do you feel about the neighborhood? How do you feel? When my clients get their offer accepted and they're all excited and they're happy and stuff, I say, okay, how do you guys feel about this? Instead of just assuming that they're excited, I ask them, how do you feel? And then when they say, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, I say, awesome. If you know anybody else that would love to be excited like that, could you please refer them to me? So I like that how do you feel thing because it gets them to say their feelings. And then I can use those feelings to motivate more things, right? So how would that make you feel? What if it took a year to sell your home? I like to ask this question when somebody has an unrealistic price. When they have an unrealistic value of their home, I ask them, okay, so let me tell you this. What would happen if it took us almost a year to sell your home? What would that look like? And then I can get it out of them. If they're like, that's fine, I'm just trying to test the market. Okay. I'm probably not going to spend $400 on pictures, put a lockbox and a sign in the yard, and spend all my time marketing this property when he's testing the market and doesn't really have to sell, right? What do you think when you see a home sitting on the market month after month after month?
Something's wrong with it.
Well, that's the answer. But are you asking this question when somebody says, this house is, I want to list my property for $100,000 over asking price? Okay, what do you think when you see a home? It doesn't even have to be 100, 10,000, 5,000, 1,000. I don't care if it's not the price that I told them that they should price it at, and they give me anything. I say, okay, what do you think about a home that sits on the market month after month after month? And then they start saying what they think, and then they put two and two together, and then they come back down to reality and they say, okay, let's price it where you're at, right? Are you prepared to be that home that sells the other homes in your area? Now, I like to show them the competition on the market. So I will show them all of the homes that are on the market, and then I find the overpriced homes, and I say, see this home right here? This home is selling all of these other homes. This home is our friend. We actually like that home. As long as we price below that home, we'll probably be okay. So do you want to be that home? And if your house didn't sell, what would you do? These are such important questions. And the reason being is that what happens when they get into contract with a buyer and there's a $5,000 pest inspection for them to fix? What if it's $10,000? I ask these questions ahead of time. Have you done a pest inspection on the property in the last year? No, you haven't. Okay, great. Most properties have some sort of dry rot or something like that. So what happens if the house has a lot of dry rot on it, like 10,000? And I ask them, and they're like, oh my God, is that what happened? No, not necessarily. I'm just wondering where you're at. And then they'll say, oh, well, if there's dry rot, then I probably want to fix that for them. how do we pay for that, right? And now I know that they're motivated. Now I know that they're the type of people that will get the deal done, right? Especially if it's at their expense for the lack of maintenance that they've provided. You're going to get some sellers that are like, I'm not doing that. I'm selling my home as is. Okay, then we need to price it as is. Does that make sense? Because we need to leave some wiggle room in there. Okay. So let's talk about how do we be more creative with our approach. Listing presentation. If you haven't already, you should create a listing presentation. It does not need to be this grand, spectacular thing. It just needs to be available. I personally, now there's listing presentations in Command that you can use. There's like 6 different listing presentations in there. I don't care which one you use, just as long as you're using one. Don't show up empty-handed. Show up with something. That is one thing that I will say. Buyers, I can do a buyer appointment and have nothing in hand, just me and the buyer, and we sit across the table and we talk and I can land it. I cannot do that with a seller. Sellers, you need to have materials, you need to have comparable sales, you need to have some kind of information, educational, right? So I personally use, this is good. I personally use Cloud CMA. Have you guys heard of Cloud CMA? Okay. What about my Zoom people? Have you guys all heard of Cloud CMA?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. If you haven't heard of Cloud CMA, you guys can email me, amyt@kw.com. If you have not heard of Cloud CMA, or if you would like to look at my listing presentation, email me, amyt@kw.com, and I will send you my listing presentation, which I have created on Cloud CMA. I've done just a little bit of customization, but there's some really important pieces that Cloud CMA provides. So does the listing presentation within Command as well. But it's intelligent pricing and timing, days on market education, and it tells the seller directly, hey, if you price your home 15% below market value, you're going to get 90% of the buyers. It does a lot of my job for me. A really good listing presentation will take care of a lot of the questions that you're going to run into within your appointment. Okay, let me see where I'm at. Okay, cool. So before I move on, I just want to say, I send my listing packet, the entire thing, to them 2 or 1 day before, whatever time I have. I send it to them a week ahead. Sometimes I don't like to do a week because why?
It's like they don't, and they cancel their appointment.
No, I don't care if they cancel. It takes me 5 minutes to do this. I send them the listing packet ahead of time. I don't like to do it more than a week. Why would I not want to send a listing packet to anyone more than a week ahead of time?
Information might be outdated.
Comparables. The comparables are going to change.
Yep.
So I usually like to do it 1 to 2 days before. And I tell them, hey, I'm going to be emailing you a packet of information. It's really important that you review this. It's actually going to cut our appointment time down in half if you read this packet. Trust me when I say they don't want to spend the afternoon with you. If you could be in and out in 30 minutes, they would love you for it. A lengthy presentation is not a valuable presentation, so don't get those two things mixed up. So they love it and they'll read it because you just told them that they're going to spend less time with you, and they like that. They want to get back to business. One thing that I have learned throughout my career is that people want you to do it for them. They don't want to do it. They want you to do it for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they don't want you to over-explain. They don't even want you to explain. Some of them, we'll talk about the personality types and who wants you to explain and who doesn't, but most people don't. They want you to handle it, right? They also don't want it to take very long or any time away from their normal lives. That's why they're hiring you. So the sooner you can get out of there, the better. So I send them the presentation. Let me see this. Okay, and then we're going to go over this. So I send them the presentation and I ask them to read through it. And then we're going to talk about which personality types will and won't do what you tell them to do. But within my listing, or the actual listing presentation, when you sit down with them, The purpose of a listing presentation is to get the seller to list with you. You can achieve that by doing 3 things. You want to create a great impression to build the seller's confidence in you as a real estate agent of choice. Sending them the presentation ahead of time and giving them the time to review it helps them do that. They're going to be able to read your resume. They're going to be able to read whatever you put in there. I have past client reviews. If you don't have past client reviews, you can do client testimonials if you have any client testimonials. If you don't have that, you can leave that part out. Don't worry about that. But for me, I like them to have time to look me up, to research, and to read it, and to integrate it. Yes.
How often do you send a listing presentation to a client and they cancel the appointment before you get the chance to meet with them?
Never. I don't have that happen very often. And I wouldn't be worried if they did. My listing presentation doesn't have anything in it like a price. In fact, I don't give them a price. We pick a price together. So I give them my expertise when we're sitting down in the moment, and that's like deep into the thing. So I'm not giving any candy away by sending the presentation. So if they did cancel, the only thing that they would know is they would know intelligent pricing and timing. They would know all my reviews. They would know, they would know the comps, some comps in the area. But there's no analysis breakdown, there's no breakdown of like what I say they should do. There's not much that they couldn't find all over the internet. Does that make sense? Okay. So you want to create a great impression and build the seller's confidence in you. And you want to do that before you show up. That way, when you show up, they're like, oh, hi. We're already happy to see you, right? So my listing presentation does have my resume. Before I had a resume, I had, right, with all my things that I've achieved in real estate, I used my office's information. I did. I used my office information. How many homes we sold in the last year. I looked like a more competent agent when I was a brand new agent using my office statistics than I do now. Right? Okay. During the presentation, you will want to share your price recommendation. You don't pick the price. One thing that I learned to do is let them choose. If you let them choose and it goes wrong, guess who's to blame?
Them, yeah.
Them. So I always give my own recommendations and I let them know this is the initial marketing price that we're going to do. So let's talk about that. Say that I pull comps on a property and it's comping out at $550,000. $550,000 is what that house is going to sell for. Where do you think I price it?
15% below.
15%? Not necessarily. No specific number. What do you think?
Maybe
525? Okay.
500 maybe.
500? Okay.
That, you should get more offers that way.
I like that, yeah.
Anyone that knows the area will see that, if they're aware of, if they're good at shopping, they'll see that.
They'll see that and I'll get multiple offers, right?
Yeah.
Right. Me personally, I would price that at $499.
That looks smaller.
I would price it at $499 and we would go on the market and by Monday I would have multiple offers all the way up to market value. Probably more. Probably more. Of course I'm going to get offers at $498 and I'm going to get an offer at $515 and I'm probably going to get an offer at $530 and $540 and all the way up to $550. But one thing that $550 offer is going to have to do is compete against all the other offers below it. And then the offers that are below it are going to be like, oh my God, somebody's willing to pay $550? Well, maybe I will too. And then when the price runs out and they have no more price to compete with, they start competing with terms. They start removing contingencies. My ultimate goal when I list a property is price. Yes. My second ultimate is a guarantee of sale. A guarantee of sale is a contingency removal, meaning that they can do inspections, I don't care, but they're not going to back out of the property. They're buying it in its current position. So that means No contingencies. All contingencies removed. That's a beautiful thing. It's especially a beautiful thing in this market if you can get an appraisal contingency removed. Because that means we're in an inclining market. But that doesn't always mean that the house is worth what buyers are willing to pay for it, right? So a buyer might come in and say, yeah, I've comped at 550, but all these other people will offer you 550, so I'm going to offer you 585. But if they have an appraisal value, appraisal contingency, it doesn't matter. Because if it appraises at 550, they're going to renegotiate, right? I want that contingency removed. If somebody offers you the world, you listed it at 550, we're going to offer you 600,000. But we want 17 days to do inspections, and we want 17 days to do an appraisal, and we want loan contingency. Is that 600 protected at all? No. No, it's not. So my price is not just for marketing. My price is to create a situation of power for the seller. The seller will be in a position of power consistently throughout that transaction because we've got 8 other offers behind it. And all I have to do is say, or they've removed contingencies, and now my seller's really in a position of power because we're just moving forward. Does that make sense? Okay, so my price is, and I explain this to my clients, the price is not the value. List price and value are 2 different things. There's a marketing piece. And I'm going to give you this. Hopefully this is being recorded and you guys can take this with you. This is how I explain pricing to sellers. And I say, when you go onto a car lot and you look at a car, a brand new car, and you see that sticker price, what do you think?
Talk them down.
That it's negotiable, right?
Right.
Why is it negotiable?
They price high.
Because they price it high. Why else is it negotiable? Is that car going to be worth that amount when I drive off the lot?
No.
No, it's a depreciating asset, right? That car will never actually be worth that sticker price. Ever in its existence. Until when? When does a car become an appreciating asset? Age? When there's a shortage? Or age?
Yeah, it's a classic.
When it's a classic or when it's a shortage?
Yeah.
Okay. That's when it becomes. And then when it becomes an appreciating asset, where does it sell?
Secondary market.
Yeah,
Do you guys ever see like classic cars being sold?
yeah, there's special auctions, there's special collectible
auction.
auctions on that.
Auction.
Secondary
It's sold
markets.
at auction. And when a car is sold at auction, it's now an appreciating asset, remember? Just like a house.
Yeah.
And when a appreciating asset is sold at auction, where does the price start?
Really. I've seen them start like at $1, but then they.
Starts low. And then what happens?
Competition.
The competition comes in and it bids up. There you go. There's your analogy that will explain pricing perfectly to sellers. Because now they understand how to equate this. This is not a depreciating asset that we price high and get down. You're actually going to shoot yourself in the foot. You're going to get less money because it's not about the price. Right? Now we know it's about contingencies. Price means nothing. And I'm telling you, you will have the sweetest buyer's agent on the phone. So sweet. Oh my gosh, my buyers just love this house. It's their dream home. It's everything they've ever wanted. We are going to do inspections, but just for information purposes only. We love the house. We're fully committed to closing. And you're like, okay, I'm going to let him get the inspections done. I trust her. She's so nice. That little Shih Tzu, little cute little puppy, little doggy is going to turn into a freaking pit bull as soon as you get those inspections back. Trust me, because that's me. My buyers love your house. It's their dream home. It's everything we've ever wanted. Right? Now, I don't say the inspections for information purposes, but they'll say that to you. They say that to you. And then you're like, oh, okay. No. So your price is protection. It's protection against agents coming back. It's protections against appraisals. It's protection against inspections. So you got to price it low. Lower than what makes them comfortable. Okay. Set expectations for how you will market the home and work with the sellers. You need to show them examples of your past marketing and evidences of success. So if you have any past clients right now, you need to be fishing for reviews. You need to be putting all of your past sales on Zillow profile. You need to collect those past sales, create marketing pieces to include in yours. In my listing presentation, there are links to my YouTube page that show all of my marketing videos that I produce for my listings. And then there is another link to the property website that I can create using command. They love it. They're so excited. And it's different because no other agent is showing them that stuff when I'm meeting with them, right? So, and you have to show them. People don't believe what you tell them. They believe what you show them. So you have to show them. This is a home that I sold before. Use my statistics. Go to my page, look at my production, and you'll use my listing plan and look at the houses that I've sold. And I'll show them. Here's a house that I sold. Comped at $650, listed at $599, sold $685. And then I just go down the list of all the homes that I've done this exact plan with and where I've seen the success. And they're like, well, you've done it before. You can do it again. And even sometimes they're scared and they'll call me later and they'll be like, are you sure we shouldn't price it higher? I'm like, no, we've got to follow the plan. Just follow the plan. And they always end up really happy with it. Okay, so now in the listing presentation, you have shown them, you've made a good impression, you've talked to them about pricing the property accurately so you can be in a position of power, and you've set expectations for how you're going to market the home and how you're going to work with the sellers and show them past examples and evidence of your success. And now you have to show up. This is how I show up. It's not just lip service. Professional photos and video every single time. Every home that I list receives a professional photos and a professional marketing video. This is not for the seller. It is. It is. But this is how I justify it when it's a kind of not that great of a house and it's maybe not that great of a price. And it's my resume. Every single time I get a video made, I put it on my YouTube page and I get to publish it to the world. That's marketing for me. It's not necessarily going to sell the house any better. It's marketing for me. And it's a resume. And when I go to listing presentations, I open up my little computer and I say, here's all the houses that I sold. And here's all of the marketing videos that I've created. And they're like, oh, wow, she does this a lot. So it's really important that I get professional photos and video every time. Also, when I show them comps, I show them the houses with the bad photos. And I say, this is what's out there. Thank God you're meeting with me today because this is the type of agent that is out there. They'll take a picture with their cell phone. How does that look compared to my photos? And they're like, oh, yeah, your photos look good, right? So don't be the agent that I use to tout myself. A deadline for offers is an absolute must. We do not review offers as they come in. We don't. We don't. As long as they priced it where I wanted them to price it. If it's overpriced, you're probably not going to get any offers. So you might get an offer and you're like, oh my God, let's review it. And that's legit. But if you priced your home, here's what happened. We'll price it at that 99 mark or whatever. Maybe it's comped like to 700, so we price it at 650. So it's whatever, and you're going to get an offer on day one or day two, and it's going to be more. It's going to be 550. It's going to be 700. It's just going to be a lot, and they're going to say, we want you to accept this offer right now. And your seller's going to be like, do it, and you're going to be like, okay. And then the next day, you're going to get a higher offer. And you're going to have to present that to your seller. And then your seller's going to be like, why did you let us accept that other offer? And they're not going to blame themselves. They're not going to be like, oh my gosh, what were we thinking? We jumped the gun. They're going to be like, I hired you to protect me from myself. So I have every single house has an offer deadline of Monday at 5 p.m. We go on the market at Wednesday or Thursday. We show the property all the way from Wednesday or Thursday all the way till Monday. Offers are due Monday, 5 p.m. Do I review offers at 5 p.m. with my seller?
No?
Heck no. How many of you were late to class today? How many of you think there's late offers that come in? Yeah. Yeah. People show up Monday at noon and they're like, oh my God, I just looked at the house. We want to put in an offer. I saw you have a deadline at 5 p.m. Don't worry, man. Deadline's 5 p.m. You got time. I'm not reviewing till tomorrow. Do you know how so sucky when you show a property and there's a deadline of 5 p.m. and they're like, I'm reviewing with the seller at 5 p.m. And I'm like, oh my, okay, well, I was gonna write a huge offer for you that could potentially give you more money, but now I don't have the time. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So remember when I talked about controlling the environment? What have I done here? I have controlled all of you. All of you I've put into my controlled environment. So now instead of checking offers 5 p.m., I know that people are going to see that and they're not going to understand time due dates. They're going to be like, are you reviewing right now? And I'm like, nope, you got time. And I have literally gotten offers that have been the highest with no contingencies after the due date. And that's why I do that, because it worked one time and I'm like, I'm doing it every time now. So offers are due then. Okay? The first offer is not the best offer. I once had an agent who was in coaching. They listed their own home. They listed it for like $550 something. I don't know. The first day that it was on the market, some guy pulls up to the house in a car, gets out, walks up, knocks on the door and says, I'm going to offer you cash right now. I'm going to offer you $20,000 above asking. And the guy was like, hell yeah, calls me and was like, do it. And I said, don't do it. Don't do it. Wait. If there's somebody that's going to offer you 20 grand today, what do you think is going to happen after we hold open houses this weekend? Think about it. And he said, nope, I don't want to miss out on this opportunity. This is cash. I said, cash doesn't mean anything. 15 days, you can wait 15 days and get 30,000 more than that. The bank pays cash too, man. Nope, took the offer. The very next day, an agent called him and said, I have a client, they saw the house, they would like to offer you a price. The price was $65,000 above the offer he accepted.
Wow.
Yeah. His wife made him sleep on the couch that night. He was like, my wife is pissed at me. She's like pissed. And I was like, yeah, I would be too. Because you were told what to do. And you got not greedy. It's not greedy what I'm saying. It's impatient. You were impatient with the process. So my process works. Don't change it. Okay. The seller's net is the #1 priority. Do not negotiate away their equity. Learn to play hardball. Learn to say no and mean it. Learn to say no to the inspections. If an agent contacts you and says, my buyer really wants to have the roof fixed because it's going to cost them money in the next 5 years, and they think this and they think that, you do not take that information and run back to your seller and regurgitate it. The seller does not care if the buyer needs the roof repaired for whatever reason the buyer needs it repaired. The seller cares about the bottom line, and they hired you to protect it. I have no problem saying no to the first repair request unequivocally. No. We are going to reject your repair request. Why? Because stand the chance that one of these agents is going to say, okay, and then they're going to lay down, and they're going to go back to their buyer, and they're going to say the seller won't do it, and there's a chance the buyer's going to say, okay, we'll take the house as is. Yes.
Sorry, but when are you obligated to follow with the request? Like
Never.
never, even
Never.
if you like have a contract signed?
There's no contract that says you, unless you agree to it and sign it, that's when you have to follow through. But there's nothing upfront that says the seller has to do any repairs whatsoever. So, protect your seller's equity. Say no. You might get lucky. Somebody might say, oh, okay, we'll take the property as is. That's up to them. And then you just protected your seller. believe me, that's actually your job, right? Your job is not to play nice with other agents. Okay, so protect your seller's equity in that way. If the buyer comes back and says, we're gonna cancel, well, it's a bilateral contract, they both have to cancel. You have time, right? You can go back and say, oh, okay. We'll negotiate, right? We'll give you something. Send me a repair request, send me a new one, we'll renegotiate. But I've gotten credits down, I've gotten just straight up no repairs, stuff like that, because I just learned how to play hardball, and I was okay saying no, and I wasn't worried about the other agents, and I wasn't worried about the buyer in that moment. Because do I work for the buyer?
No.
No. That's something that I had to get over, and we all have to get over, right? Because you want to do the right thing. Yes.
So if the seller agreed property to be sold as
Mhm.
both buyer and seller signed, we can all, but appraisal comes back and the appraisal request done. The seller is okay to do it.
No.
So what
Or
about
it
the
won't
loan?
sell.
Yeah, so what, if she or he does not do it, and the loan will not come,
Correct.
so then they are.
They're not obligated. So the thing is the language here. No one is obligated to do anything. In fact, that buyer could do those repairs to get the loan. So that's the language that has to change. The buyer is, or the seller is not obligated to do anything. Is it in their best interest? Absolutely.
Hey,
It's
Amy,
a choice that they should make. Yes?
will you repeat the question, please?
What question?
George said
The
he
question,
couldn't.
she said, okay, sorry. The question was, say that the seller's in contract to sell their property and they, contingencies removed?
Yeah, contingencies removed, sold
Oh,
as
no.
is, sold as is, but
Yeah.
when the appraiser goes up,
Okay.
appraiser has few things to be done.
Okay,
And
so
so
now
then-
we're getting into like contract stuff. No, the seller's not required to do anything. The buyer would lose their deposit if they backed out. So the question is if the seller, if all contingencies are removed, including appraisal, and the appraisal comes in low, or there's repairs that need to be done in order for the bank to loan on the property, is the seller required to do those repairs? No. The buyer said, I'm buying the home as is, I've removed contingencies. The appraisal comes back, their lender says that they need repairs done. The seller doesn't have to do anything. They agreed to an as-is sale. It's in the best interest for them to renegotiate those repairs. Sorry, that's like a whole other animal. But knowing that, how do I know that? I read the listing contract. I know the listing contract very well. I know it so much so that I know that. So that way when an agent comes to me and says, your seller's required to do those repairs, I can say, no, they're not. Your buyer can do them though if they want to. We'll still close the loan, right? So you have to know that listing contract and you have to kind of understand it from a really deep level. So read it. And the reason that I know it is through experience, but also from just reading it, asking my broker questions. Beautiful thing that you have, you've got Bruce Hammer here for you. Bruce Hammer has a law degree. He knows the contract. Bruce has taught me things. I've been in this for 8 years and he's teaching me things about that contract that I was like, oh, I didn't know it meant that. So, like, I'm not coming down because you don't know, but I'm just saying, like, I still have to learn. So, okay, so SellerNet is #1 priority. All right, offers are not confidential. They're not confidential unless the buyer sent you an NDA, a non-disclosure ahead of time and said, you can't say anything. And then once your seller signs that, then it's confidential. And then they can send you the offer. No offers are confidential. So that means that when a buyer's agent calls me, I can say, I have 5 offers on the table. We're up to $550,000. If you want to compete, submit. If you can't compete with that, then you may not want to waste your time. And I'm okay with that. I can't stand it when I call an agent and I say, where are offers at? And they say, I can't tell you, that's confidential. No, it's not. There's nothing in the contract that says that. And I highly doubt that your sellers actually told you that. Sellers don't tell you that. I know because I go on listing appointments and they tell me, do whatever you need to do, Amy. So you guys as agents know that. Use it as your advantage. Use it to negotiate. Say, hey, look, I've got 5 offers in hand. We're up to 550. You should come in higher. And then some people will be like, okay, we'll be in at 575 or something like that, right? So offers are not confidential. Over communicate, explain the whys and the hows of what you're doing. Why do we list it so low? Well, because listing it so low is going to get multiple offers, and those multiple offers are going to do this for us in the long run, right? And then the last is give them time to process. People need time to process. People also learn differently. So some people learn verbally, some people learn by reading, some people learn by hearing, some people learn by reading, right? So that's why I send them the information ahead of time, because I want them to read it, and then I want them to process it. Whenever you're going to make a really, really big purchase, like you're going to buy a car or going to be something else, what is the most common thing that people say that you should do before you make a choice?
Sleep on it.
Sleep on it, right? I got to sleep on it. When I took this job, I talked to John. I knew it when I came here. I talked to John. I knew this was where I was going to be. I knew it unequivocally in the moment that I sat down with him. And what did I tell him? I said, I got to sleep on it. Because I did. Because you should never make a split decision, right? Okay, you're sitting with somebody within a half an hour to an hour, and you're telling them to list their biggest asset that they've ever owned in their entire life with you after just presenting to them a crap ton of information. Probably going to tell you, we got to think about it. They also need time to talk. If they're a couple, they need time to talk. Marriages explode when people make decisions like that without talking to each other. So you know that ain't gonna happen. Okay, so I send them the information ahead of time because I want, when I sit down with them, I want them to, one, have already discussed the information, reviewed the information, and digested the information. If they've already slept on it, most of the time when I show up to that appointment, we're talking actual pricing and listing paperwork. I'm not sitting down having to explain to them why we're going to price it 15% below or whatever it is. I'm going to talk about percentages, but I don't have to explain that to them. I don't have to explain to them the comps in the area. I don't have to say, well, house on Sycamore Street sold for this much, it's 3.2. I don't have to do that. I've eliminated all of that from my presentation, and now all I have to do is talk about them and the pricing, and let's sign paperwork and get started. The real treasure is in the follow-up. Okay, and I have to kind of breeze through this because I need to get to the disc stuff and I talk too much. So call consistently, offer value, offer market updates to move them. It doesn't matter why, it really doesn't matter. Call them for any reason. Just call to say hi and check in. You can do that. It's not a problem. Make it relevant to their motivation. So if somebody needs to move, maybe somebody needs to sell their home and move out of state, you can market to them about states, I don't know. Make it relevant. Like maybe they want to move into a senior community. Start marketing them for new senior communities. Build the picture of where they're going. You can only know how to market to each individual person in a motivating way when you know them and you know what they want. So that's why the initial appointment of getting to know them more and finding their motivation is so important. Because you can't really market to their motivation until you know what's truly motivating them. When they tell you to call back in 2 weeks, cut it in half. Don't actually give it 2 weeks. Cut it in half and check in earlier. Hey, you told me to call you in 2 weeks. I just want to check in and make sure that's still a good time to talk. Like, I'll do that. It's a touch. I'm still here. They want you to be like that. They want a pit bull. They want someone that goes after what they want. You're a salesperson that sells homes. They don't want you to be laid back like them. They want you to be a professional salesperson. They want you to date them also, just so you know. I play this like a dating game. You don't call the girl you're dating for 2 weeks, hell, some other dude might come up and snag her. That's how I think about it. If they told me to call in 2 weeks and then I don't call for 2 weeks, or maybe I miss it and I don't call for 3, so I just cut it in half. Are you asking great questions and creating a relationship, or are you just taking, are you asking great questions and creating a great relationship? Are you taking notes each time you meet with them and putting that in your CRM? Are you consistent with your follow-up? Think about that. Every single conversation that you have with someone counts as an impression on them. Does that make sense? Every conversation. Set up plans in KW Command. Our tech makes your life so much easier. There's smart plans in there for follow-up, to send automatic texts and automatic emails. If you have somebody that's trying to sell their home, you should be sending them an automatic market update so that they can see the comps in the area, what's selling, what's going on in the market, right? Okay, let's get into the good stuff. Oh wait, I got one more. In your packet, you're gonna see some daily success habits. Take some time, look through those, add those into your repertoire. I really like this one. Don't believe what you hear from them or others without curiosity and great questions. Oh, my brother wants to sell his home, but you know, he's a super rough person to work with. He's kind of a jerk. Awesome, I love jerks. Send him over. Let's do it. Right? Don't listen to that stuff. Ask questions. Be the expert in your market. Be the expert. There is a trends report on the MLS. Every single month you should be pulling the trends report. I think between the 5th and the 10th, you can pull a trends report. At the top of the MLS, there's a button that says trends. Poke it, push it, click it, and it will take you into this report. It's going to show you a bunch of graphs. Read those graphs. Understand what they mean. One time, and I'm going to talk to you about personality types, but one time I had somebody ask me how many days on, what's the average, what's the inventory amount for the Sacramento, and I was like, how do you know this question? Like, this is a deep graph that like only realtors really talk about, the amount of inventory in the market. But I knew it. You want to know why I knew it? Because I read the trends report on a regular basis. And I'm not a numbers, like really savvy kind of girl like that. Kind of a mess, to be honest, when it comes to numbers and statistics. But I can read a graph. And so I just read the graph and I understand what it means. And I can regurgitate these things. And I look like an expert. It's amazing. Okay, so let's talk about DISC. Before I get into it, I want to pause a moment. Does anybody have any questions? I know I'm just up here on my soapbox, just preaching away. Okay. Has anybody taken the DISC? Okay. Do you know what your personality type is?
High S and C.
High S and C.
Hi,
High I.
I believe I'm a high.
High I. Can't remember? Okay, I'm a high D. Anybody else? What about Zoom? Any of you guys taking it? George, what are you, George?
I'm a high D.
High D. Anybody else? Okay, if you haven't, I highly recommend it. Google Tony Robbins DISC assessment. Take it. When you get the results, you're gonna be like, it said I'm a negotiator, and that is wrong. If you don't get a result that says DISC, it's the cheap version. So you need to scroll to the bottom of your results, and there's a $24.95 fee that you will pay for the actual DISC results. It is 100% worth it. Why? Because it tells you about yourself, and it tells you about your strengths and your weaknesses, and then it tells you about other people. That's the piece that you want. I have taken that DISC profile and shrunk it down to some bullet points for you here today. But if you really want to learn this stuff in depth, you'll read that. You'll read it. Okay. So we know what the DISC assessment is now. It's a strengths finder, and it breaks you down into 4 different categories: D, I, S, and C. D is for dominant. I is for influencer. S is for steady, and C is for conscientious. Let's break it down. So the DISC profile is really interesting because it tells you how you're perceived by others. And you just got into the business of other people and building relationships with them. And let me tell you, how other people perceive you will determine whether you are successful in this business or not. It's very hard for our individualistic personalities, and everybody wants to be their own man and have their own opinions, but you just got into the business where it no longer matters. And the other people matter. So you have to understand how you show up to them. This also helped me a lot with not just my clients, but like everybody. Now I'm way more conscientious. Now I check in with people so that I make sure I didn't mess up with them. I used to not do that. I used to go about my life and just and now I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that thing that I said, right? That's a good thing. I need that. Okay. We all need that. So how are you perceived by others? A D personality or a dominant personality is motivated by goals and results. They are the quick talkers, quick thinkers. They want to talk about the results, not what happened, but the result. They don't want to talk about the problem. They want to talk about the solution. Their fears are being taken advantage of and of wasting time. That's their biggest fear. And we're going to go in depth, so don't worry. Influencers, high eyes or influencers, that's what you'll hear people say. Their motivation is approval, acceptance, and flattery. Their fears are rejection. This is not a bad thing. The approval and acceptance, we all want approval and acceptance. It's really important to them because they're people. Does that make sense? They love relationships. 99% of realtors are I personalities because they're relationship people. They have the biggest databases. They have the best relationships. They always have someone they can call for something. Does that make sense? Good. S types, their motivation is safety and security. They fear change and loss of security. Conscientious people, or C types, conscientious, their motivation is information and logic, and their biggest fear is being wrong. These are important things for you to remember. The fears, when you show up to them in your appointments, that's what's leading them in the beginning. In the very beginning, they're led by fear because they might not know you well. They're walking into a situation with their biggest investment that they've ever made or their home. There's fear there. There's a lot of fear there. One of my motivation mining questions that I didn't put on here is, when you think about selling your home, what keeps you up at night? What's your biggest concern? And the reason being is I'm trying to eliminate this fear. I'm trying to get to that part. Based on that, I can kind of tell where they're at in the disc profile, and I can start to eliminate it. Also, it's things like, well, we don't know how we're going to move from this home and then move into our next home. Do we have to move twice? And I'm like, no, that's totally no. You don't have to do that. I can solve that problem for you. That's called that's disarming, right? I'm taking their fear and I'm saying, I'm going to take care of all of that. You don't have to worry about that. Do you think they want to work with me more if I can handle their biggest fear? Right? Because they move away from pain. They're not moving towards pleasure. They're not working with me because I got the best headshot and I sold 500 homes.
Because I want her to get a new headshot.
No, that's not. I didn't even think about that.
Sure thing,
No,
buddy.
I swear to God, I didn't even put those two together.
Oh, no, you brought that up.
No, I didn't. Melinda wants me to get a new headshot. No, it's not. It's not because of any of those things. It's because you have shown them that you're going to get them from here to there with as little hassle as possible. And that's what they're looking for. That's why they hired a professional. Okay, so let's talk about D's. Converting leads to clients using the disc. So this is how you're going to convert people. D's, if you're going to talk with them, you need to be brief and to the point. They do not need small talk. They don't need it. It's not necessary for them. You could call them and literally just say, hi, blah, 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 and go into your thing, and they'll never have a problem with that. But they do like appreciation. I think everybody loves appreciation. So I have mixed that in quite a bit to everything that I do. When I show up to the door to go to a listing appointment, I stop and I say, first things first, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to work for you. I'm really appreciative. And then I go into the house. Like I start it with gratitude. Because I want them to be like, I'm trying to melt some hearts in this mofo, you know what I mean? Like I want them to be like, oh, she's so nice. And I mean it too, because I have not done that in the past. And I have lost things and clients. So I've learned that this is important. Fills my bucket to do it too. All right. Get to the bottom line. That's why I like to send that packet ahead of time. But you know what's really funny about these guys is I'll send the packet ahead of time and they will not read it. They'll tell me that they'll read it. They won't read it. But when I show up, they're not too worried about all those details anyways. They don't care. They want to know, how am I going to get it done? What's the price I'm going to sell it for? What are they going to end up with? That's it. How do we get done with this appointment? That's what it is for them. How do we get done with this appointment faster? I have Ds that are like, I've emailed it to them, and they're like, they called me before the appointment and said, well, I like everything that you sent over. What do you think we should price it at? I'm like, well, I'd really like to go over this in the presentation, but this is kind of what I'm thinking. What are you thinking? No, I think that sounds really good, Amy. Oh, okay. Do you still want to have our appointment? No, I don't think it's necessary. Why don't you go ahead and email the paperwork to me? Okay, fine. Save me, babysitter. I'm okay with that. Talk about solutions. So I said this again down here. Discuss problems immediately, but you've got to bring solutions. Don't ever call a high D personality and say, we've got a problem, and then that's it. And then present them with a problem. They don't like that. They want you to call and say, hey, we have a problem, and I have solutions for you. Here are your options. Or they really love, hey, we had a problem, but I fixed it. That is another thing that I've learned to do, is that I tell people what I've done for them. We don't normally do that. We don't normally say, hey, there was this big issue, but I solved it. But if I don't tell them that I did that, do they know my worth? No. So if I have solved a big problem for them, I like that. I will go to them and be like, hey, just wanted to give you a quick update. Had a little problem happen today. I went ahead into this where it's completely solved. I just want to let you know. They're like, oh, you're the best. They would have never thought I was the best. They would have thought it was smooth sailing, right? And then, how do I earn my fee? Okay. Give them choices. That's why I say, here's your solution.
It's the witch clothes.
Huh?
This one or this one?
Yeah, this one or this one. I'm giving you two options and both of them benefit me. Which one would you like?
No.
Right? Okay, focus on results. This is how we win. This is how we're going to win it. I'm going to tell you a story. And I can even use their name. Rich Gibbons, here in the office, was showing property to the guy that owns Palf Gracie Jiu-Jitsu Studio. So his name's Manny. Manny has been a competition fighter for all of his life, from childhood all the way up. He likes to win, and he does win. And then now he teaches other people how to be warriors and teaches them how to win. He coaches children and other people on how to win these competitions too. So do you think he likes to win? And so he's buying a house in the highest seller's market that we've ever seen. And when he goes out to write offers, you know, I'm so sorry, but this is a seller's market and the seller has 10 other offers and so we're going to have to offer them the most and we're going to have to drop contingencies and we have to do this. And the guy's like, no, I don't want to do it. I'm going to offer this price and I'm going to do this. And he's getting beat out. And then I'm going over to take my kids there and he's like, Amy, what's going on in the market? And I'm like, dude, offer them over asking price. I don't know what your problem is. You're pre-approved for enough. Just offer them what they want. In his mind, that was losing. Right? That was him losing. Now the seller's winning. I've been winning my whole life. So I said, you got to pitch it to him differently. You got to change his idea of who the competition is. Competition is not the seller. The competition is all the other buyers. So you got to pitch it different now. Now you got to say, hey, this seller has 5 other offers. Okay? In order for us to win and beat all of these other buyers, we need to offer this amount. He had that conversation with him. He wrote the offer and he got it accepted and they closed on that property. all because of wording, framing, motivations, understanding disc. I knew that he was a high D personality because every time I talk to him, it's very short. It's very short and he's on the go. He's done with me before I'm done with him. You will feel that. You'll feel like this person's a D in other ways, right? You'll be like, I don't like this person. This person is short and they're not nice and they don't ever small talk with me. And when they walk through the office, they have a scowl on their face. They don't smile very much. But whenever I talk to them, it's not that bad. It's just they're loud. These things, right? You know them. Understanding, right? But they're only 10% of the population. That's the beauty of it. They're only 10% of the population. So you won't have to deal with these too much. But they do come out. They're usually executives. They're usually other salespeople, CEOs. You get into luxury homes, things like that, you're going to run into these people. But there's also a ton of them that haven't done anything either. So you're going to run into them into the average population too. What happened? Oh, please. Okay. All right, let's talk about influencers. Influencers love people and are relationship based. D personalities. Why is my clicker not? Sam, I need batteries for the clicker. It doesn't work. All right, I'll come over here. You got it? I got it. I'm gonna use this. Okay, so influencers. So D personalities are task-oriented people. That's why they come off abrupt, because they're so worried about the result and the task and the thing that they're thinking about right now that they need to do, that they're not worried that they just frowned at you. Does that make sense? They're not worried. They're not even thinking about that. That's kind of the out that I give them, is like those poor things. They're so wrapped up in their heads about what they got to do in the results at the end of the day that they don't even think they have time to be people. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so I give them a pass. Sometimes. Okay, influencers, though, they're so people-oriented that they care so much about what others think about them. That's why their biggest fear is rejection. Because they love people so much, and they want everybody to like and love them, too. So when you're working with an influencer or an I personality, you've got to let them talk about themselves. If you interrupt them, they don't like that. Okay? If you interrupt them to get back to the point, really don't like that. If you interrupted them to have some banter and like add to their story and go back and forth, they'd like it. But if you were like, okay, let's get back to the point, they will not like you anymore and you'll be done.
I'm gonna leave now.
Yeah, exactly. She's like,
I'm gonna just go home and cry.
So what they're thinking now is that this person doesn't like you. They're so focused on that fear of rejection, right? They're like, oh my God, this person just shut me down. They're no longer listening to you. And now your expertise is falling on flat ears. Okay. You've got to include them in the conversation. I was once in a listing appointment with a high D person and then a high D significant or a high I significant other. Me and this person were just like going for it. This person felt very left out. So I realized that, luckily, and I started shifting my focus. And I would ask both of them, and I would go back and forth and back and forth, and I was able to bring her back in when it was all done, right? But you have to include them in the conversation. Sharing thoughts and ideas. They love to share their own thoughts and ideas. So asking them about their thoughts and ideas is important. Recognize them for their accomplishments. I personalities, I believe, are about 30% of the population. So they'll probably have a ton of pictures on the wall. And if they have achieved anything, it's out and you'll see it. So congratulate them on it, acknowledge it, and be like, oh my gosh, look at your beautiful kids. If they have any loved ones there, like dogs, kids, anything like that, acknowledging those people who they love, ooh, that'll get you solidified, right? Like if they have dogs in the house, you gotta love on those dogs. Okay. Making things fun. You gotta be fun, jokey, laughy, lighthearted. They want to connect. They want to connect more with you on a personal level than they do on a professional level. D's only want to connect on a professional level. Do not ask them how their day was. They're gonna be like, it's fine. What's up? I'm like, why are we talking about this right now? We have a purpose here. And then influencers, if you don't ask them how their day is or how they're doing, they're gonna be like, oh, okay, we're just gonna get to business. Like, that's rude. And I get it. You gotta give them flexibility and freedom. They need to be able to feel like there's flexibility. It can't be so rigid. So it's a lot of, well, this is the way that I do it, but hey, if you've got a better idea, see what I did? This is the way that I normally do it on a regular basis and have a lot of success. But if you have a better idea, I would love to hear it. And they'll give you your idea, but they don't necessarily need you to take it. They just want to be able to share it. They just want the flexibility and the freedom to be themselves.
Thank you.
Yeah. I like to ask them, how do you feel about that? Because they have a lot of feelings. They live in their feelings, and that's okay. So you want to touch on that. How are you feeling right now? And don't assume that anybody is feeling the way that you are feeling. So like I have called somebody and been like, I am so excited. We beat all 10 offers. I just got your offer accepted. This is the greatest news ever. Congratulations. We're moving forward. And they were terrified. They were freaking out. So now I call and I say, hey guys, I just called because I wanted to give you some good news. We just got our offer accepted. Out of all the offers that we had, we've got our offer accepted, but I want to hear from you directly. How do you feel about that? See how my voice was very the same? I didn't put any of my own feelings into that statement. I was monotone and I let them know what happened, and then I immediately asked them to tell me how they feel. So that way, when they're like, oh my God, we're ecstatic, then Amy's not showing up in any other way but ecstatic for them, right? And if they came back and said, Amy, we're really scared actually because we found this other house and we kind of think that we want it out. Now we feel bad, all this kind of stuff. And then I can be like, don't worry, here's the plan, let's do this. Right? That way I don't make them feel even worse by being like, oh my God, I worked so hard. Congratulations. I'm so glad to be done. Right? Okay. Steady. Well, okay. Steady. You've got to express genuine interest in them. So you can't just be like, hey, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah. You got to be like, hey, how are you doing? And then wait for their response and genuinely be interested. Make sense? Give them a sense of support. I like to use the term we a lot. We are going to get through this. I have your back. Stuff like that, right? We are a team. I have a team. They really like to hear that. Don't worry, I have a team of professionals that I've been working with for a very long time that will help us get through all of this. Don't be confrontational. You've got to relate to them. You've got to relate to them on some kind of level. I understand. I understand works for all personality types. In fact, that's my immediate response, even when I don't understand, even when I don't like, I'm like, why would you do this? This is so silly. I'll say, I can totally understand why you would feel that way. Or I can totally understand why you would think that. It's a diffuser. It's disarming. Instead of me being like, no, that's not the way it goes, I'm saying, I totally understand why you think that. Or, that makes sense to me. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But can I share with you my experience? Or can I let you know how it usually goes? Or this is what we usually do. It's disarming. They've been able to say what they need to say, and I validated it, even if I don't agree with them. You know how great that works with kids and significant others? Good Lord, when I learned that I could validate somebody, feelings and opinions without actually agreeing with them, holy heck, my relationships got a lot better. I stopped feeling like I needed to argue everything. And I started just saying, I can understand how you feel that way. Here's how I feel about it. Revolutionary. Okay? Give them time to adjust to change. Steady people do not like change. They will go with change, but you've got to set them up for success by making sure that they have a sense of support through the change. And you've also got to let them know why it's changing and the benefit at the end. Does that make sense? When somebody doesn't like something, and it has to happen, you've got to make it a better have to happen type of situation. So offer them, hey, this is going to happen. It's going to feel like this. I'm here. You've got support. We're going to get through this together. Be patient and pleasant. So patience is key. Very hard for a high D personality because I want to go, 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 go. And I'm like, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. And now so I've got to slow down. I've got to slow down my speech. I've got to slow down the way that I talk. I've got to slow down and make sure that I'm checking in and asking questions. They need lots of support. Show sincere appreciation. So not, love ya, okay, thanks, bye. It's thank you so much, sincerity. All right, let's talk about my C people. Man, these people push me for sure because I'm a D personality. I'm all about results. And these people are all about the details. Details matter. These are conscientious folks. They live by facts and defined plans. Okay? That means that your presentation needs to have the comparable sales. Oh, and by the way, they already pulled their own comparables. And they have those ready for you to review. Not only that, but they probably pulled comps that you were like, that's not a comp. But they pulled it anyways because it's the highest priced house in the neighborhood, right? I have tailored my presentation that now. So when I pull comps and I've never been to the home before, and I particularly think that they might be this guy, I pull the highest priced house in the zip code. And I will say, here's this house. Let's look at it together and review that house, and I'll show them all the fanciness about it. And then I ask them, how do you think that compares to your home? And that's when they're like, yeah, that looks like it has some more upgrades than my home does. Oh, okay, great. So let's look at homes that look like your home. And I completely eliminate that. Be detailed in your explanations. This is why it really helps to know the contract. And also with my C types, I will email them a sample copy of the contract before we meet so that they can review it. Because I know they're going to want to do that. Like when you go over the contract, I have a very simple way that I explain each page very quickly, like bop, 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 bop. No, not with them. They want deeper explanation. So you've got to read it because you got to explain it a little bit deeper. And they're not going to be okay with some surface level stuff. You can't be pushy and you can't criticize them. That's where my whole, I totally understand why you like that. Or I totally understand why you think that. Or I understand why you feel that way. That makes a lot of sense to me. But here's also this, right? So I've learned to use those because that's a C-type thing. They don't want to be wrong. So if they say something to you that's blatantly wrong and you're like, no, that's wrong, you've lost them. They are gone. Okay? Give them time to analyze information before deciding. These are my overnighters. I got to send them the listing presentation and the contract ahead of time so that they can review it. And they will. And they will highlight it and bullet point their questions. Be patient and diplomatic. I think diplomacy goes a long way with your clients. Remembering the end goal is to sell the home. Even negotiations. Diplomacy comes when you remove your emotions from the situation. You, as the agent, need to remove your emotions from the situation. You also do not need to adopt the emotions of your clients. When I was new, my client would be pissed, and I'm like, I'm pissed with ya. Yeah, let's get a torch and go take it down. No. Now I'm like, okay, I totally understand why you would feel that way. Let's think about it from this perspective. Or let's think about it like this. Let's think about it from the seller's perspective. Let's think about it from the buyer's perspective. You need a new roof on your house, you're pissed, you're not happy about it. F that inspector, he's just trying to get you money. Okay, got it. So let's look at it from this perspective. He's a licensed contractor in the state of California. You know, it is what it is. They're regulated. Or maybe it's an inspector, stuff like that, right? You're going to get that. You're going to get people that are fiery. They're going to be mad at the other side. You can't get fiery with them. And it's okay not to. It's actually more in their benefit for you to not jump on that emotional train wreck. Because what's going to happen is that it's going to go out of control. And they really need you to be the professional that they hire to bring you back down, bring them back, right? Does that make sense to you? Has anybody been in that situation where your clients are all hopped up and fired up and you want to join them because you think that that's where you need to be to support them? You actually don't. You can listen. You can not combat them. And then you can come up with solutions to help them fix the problem. You can't do it once you've gotten emotional to them. Allow space and independence. They need to be independent. They need to make their own decisions. This is why I tell them I don't pick the price. I literally took me picking the price off of the table altogether. I pick the price with you because, Mr. Seller, the listing contract states that the seller is ultimately responsible for picking the price. So let's pick it together. You probably already know this, and what do you think? These are my favorites to use with C-type personalities. You probably already know this, but we're in a seller's market. You probably already saw the comps, but I brought them here to look at. Anyways, I love say I say for everything. You probably already know this, but I charge this. You know, it's like it doesn't matter what it is, but it's them. It's you acknowledging that they probably know it. I think my daughter's a C-type because she constantly tells me, I know, Mom. Must be. Okay, so let's talk about showing up to these people and some sales tactics. So physiology, you need to match their posture and physical mannerisms. I have watched an agent do a buyer consultation in that room, and I just sat here and watched them, and they were mirroring, matching. The client would put their hand to their chin. The agent would stop and put their hand to their chin. The client would lean back and put their hands behind their head. The agent would lean back and put their hands behind their head. And it was the smartest thing we could have done. Because people react to what looks like them. People like people that act like them. People like their kind. Does this make sense? You gravitate towards others that are like you. So if they sit forward, you sit forward. If they cross their legs, you cross their legs. Now, I really don't want you to get so mirror and matchy that they're like, what is going on? You're like a mirror. They're like itching, you're itching. But I'm going to say like 30 seconds after they make the move, you make the move. Does that make sense?
Sometimes it happens, you don't even realize it. If you are connecting.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that because I have noticed that I do it all the time. Also, you should learn body language. So funny because me and Melinda were having a meeting and she crossed her arms and she said, I'm crossing my arms because I'm cold, not because I'm closed off. But that was like, she knows body language because that's what that means when you're like this. If a buyer crosses their arms in front of you, they are closing that gap. But if they're open and they're talking with their hands, and unless it's cold outside, and then they might just. If they slowly drink water, so do you. If they talk with their hands, you talk with your hands too. The speech rate. Speak at the same speed and tempo as them. When I make my phone calls, and I'm like, hey, this is Amy Tremaine with Keller Williams Realty, and they get on the phone and they're like, hi, how are you? I immediately am at their level. Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you so much for answering the phone. Blah, 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 blah. But I match because if I continue to show up like I'm showing up naturally, I'm going to push them away. There's people that speak really slow. My financial advisor speaks the slowest I have ever heard somebody speak in my entire life, and it takes everything for me to get through those conversations. And every time he's very C-type, and every time he calls me, I'm like, I'm gonna need to book like 20 minutes to call this guy back because And there's always small talk. Like, he will not start business. That's a cultural thing, by the way. I want you guys to know that. Culturally, some people do not do business unless you ask them about them, their family, or them, or say how their day's going. So when I say that high Ds don't need small talk, I don't say you should eliminate that just because you think someone's high D, because culturally, they could find that extremely offensive. So that's just a little thing. Okay, so speak at the same speed and tempo. Don't speak fast in 5th gear when they are back in stage 1 or 1st gear. Certain disc behaviors like D's and I's, we speak really rapidly. We interrupt people. We don't find a problem with it. In fact, if a high I and a high I got together, they'd have the greatest time. High D's get together, we like interrupt each other constantly and are so aggressive, and we get louder and louder and louder. Get me and John together, and he'll interrupt me, and I'll interrupt him, and we'll be loud, and we'll be talking over each other, and neither of us have a problem. We're not offended, it's not a problem. Get a D in the room with an I, and an I's talking about themselves, and the D interrupts them. World War II. So you've got to understand how you talk and how other people talk are different. S and C's tend to be slow, more patient. You'll find a D personality or an I personality, you may know what they're going to say before they get to the end of the sentence that they're saying, but you need to and let them say it. Let them have that freedom and the autonomy to express themselves. Speaking in different paces creates a noticeable disconnect. Have you ever had a conversation with someone that you just feel like you're not connecting with? I have. We're just not connecting the dots here. Volume. Speak as loud or as softly as them. By matching the volume, you can slowly bring them to a more of a neutral volume. I think that's a typo. I think that's definitely a typo. But you can bring them into a more of a neutral, right? So if they're speaking really low, you might be able to bring them up just by talking a little bit louder. And if they're speaking really high, you can bring people down by talking to them in a lower tone. Quiet or shy people feel more comfortable and begin to speak up. So if your volume matches theirs, they'll start to speak up to you more. But if you're super loud, they won't. They'll feel dominated and they won't even bother. Loud and gregarious people will start to relax and listen to your message. The more non-emotional and level you are, the more you'll be able to get across, because it's at a volume and at a tone that many can understand. Have you ever heard somebody talk like the Micro Machine Man? Do you guys remember Micro Machine Man? And they go, and you're like, what did they just say? Can't do that. My family's from the South. If I try to get on the phone with my aunt from the South, she's like, baby, you talk so fast. Can't understand what you're saying. And I'm like, I'm talking. Well, you don't understand. They talk so slow. So I have to slow down. It's excruciating for me, but I do it. All right, so tonality and pitch. Make your voice sound like their voice. So match their emotion. Anger, stress, sorrow, excitement. Now, this is really for when you're working. I honestly, once you get into negotiations, I'm back at that monotone level, because if I match them and their anger and stress, it can escalate things to another level. However, keep it monotone. When you're talking with people on the phone and you're trying to convert them, a little bit different. It can be a little bit more lax. It says here, match foreign and ethnic accents subtly. I want you to be very careful with this. This can be extremely, there are many telephone sales gurus that do this at a very good level. They put it on a little bit because they're doing phone sales. So they're trying to relate to the person on the other end. This does not translate person to person. It does not. People can tell when you're faking an accent or anything like that. This isn't about faking an accent. It's about getting on their level, right? It's about meeting them where they're at. Match their level of grammar. Don't be too fancy or casual for your client. If you know a culture really well and you're a part of that culture, when you speak to them in their language or you use their kind of dialect or anything like that, they get you more. There's things that happen in other languages or other dialects that we don't understand, nuances and things like that, right? So you can't, so the same thing happens with grammar. The same thing happens with different regions of the United States, right? Okay, so like when we talk about matching foreign or ethnic accents, I really think it's more about matching like even in the United States, we've got East Coasters, right? And how do they talk? They've got a little bit of an accent, right? They talk a little bit like this. You can have an accent. Southerners have a little bit of a draw. Talk to them like that, right? They'll connect with you over the phone. But grammar is important too. Don't use jargon. Don't use jargon. And if you do use jargon, talk them through that jargon, explain what you mean. So when you say, well, when we look at the purchase contract is the contract that we write between the buyer and the seller saying that they're going to purchase the property. And then you get back to it. You've got to explain it to them. Does that make sense? You can't just use jargon. Match high-pitched or squeaky voices along with low, deep voices. If you're getting into it and you're high-pitched and they're talking with a really deep, low voice, you've got to meet in the middle somewhere. Does that make sense? So you want to bring your voice down. Again, this is all, just remember mirror and matching. If they've got a super deep voice, you don't want to continue with a super high-pitched going, right? You kind of bring it down. All right, keyword, phrasing, and backtracking. Okay, I'm gonna try to end this on time. A great way for you to communicate and to hear and understand their needs. You're gonna restate words back to them. Usually it's the last 3 words that they said. So if someone says, I'm looking to buy a house. Oh, you wanna buy a house? It's an affirmation that you heard what they said, and then it gets them to say, yes, blah, they'll go for it. If they frequently tell you that they don't need to sell, then you should repeatedly validate it by saying, I understand that you don't need to sell. Or by explaining it. It's a good thing that you don't need to sell, right? So you're reaffirming that. Use the individual words that they use multiple times. If somebody starts using any kinds of descriptive words, you use those words. I really want to make sure that this is an easy sale. Okay, look, this is how we're going to make this an easy sale for you, right? They just told you what they want. Repeat it back to them. And then use that continuously throughout. And here's an example. A prospective home buyer might constantly mention the feel of different homes with statements like, it feels like a good family home, or it feels cold and dark. Here, the client is expressing that the feel of the home is more important to him than any other considerations like condition of features. Accordingly, a good communicator's attention should be directed at how prospective homes feel as well. So if somebody's constantly, so watch out for these words. This is why asking questions is so important. When I was a brand new agent, I'd walk in and I'd be like, oh, this is a pretty nice house. This looks good. Features look good. And I was telling them because I was the expert on the market, right? So I was thinking that I needed to tell them that the house was a good house for them to buy. No more. Haven't done that in years now. Now I don't even share my opinion. My opinion actually means absolutely nothing. Why? I don't have to live in the home. So I asked them their opinion. What do you guys think about this neighborhood? What do you guys think about the house itself? What do you think about the kitchen? How do you feel about that? And then they're going to give me the descriptive words. Well, it feels like this. Oh, okay. Or I really want to make sure we get inspections done. Okay, well, when we get inspections done, right? I'll bring that up again. Thank you. Okay. Sorry I went over. If you have to leave, I totally understand. I talked over. Maybe I extend this class to be a little bit longer so there's less talking of you. But what questions do you have? Or any ahas that you would like to share with me?
What do you do if someone's too much of both, 2 things? So you know how you say like a high I or an ID or whatever? Which one do you lean more towards?
I would use both. So this is one thing that I have done. My listing presentation and my packet covers every personality. So if somebody shows up as a high I, high D, I will say this. Once you read the results, you're going to understand that people show up as one or the other. and they show up as one in their style when they care about what you think about them, and then they show up as the other one when they don't care what you think about them. So at work, you're going to show up one way. It's adaptive style it's called the adaptive style. You will adapt for as long as you can until your natural style takes over. And so once you read the DISC results and you understand that, you'll see that most people they'll have like two, but they really show up. So you're looking for their natural style. How do they show up naturally? That's the one you want to play to. The adaptive style is how they show up when they're being conscious about how they show up, when they're paying attention to their behavior. That's a good question. Any other questions or aha?
Two good reminders, like just hearing it. I've taken this class from you before, but it's been a little while. I haven't had any listings yet, so I'm here. So I'm here again.
I love it.
So I like it, yeah.
Good, that makes me feel good. All right.
I'm actually a high S, and when you sent me that thing, like, what are your core values or all these things, or another class, that was saying, like, what is it that you're good at? And all I could think of was, like, steadiness. I'm like, ooh, that's so boring. And then it's like, oh, that's right, I'm an S.
It's not
steady.
It's not boring. S types are consistent.
Like, oh.
Look at how consistent you've been with your business.
Yeah.
That's because you're naturally consistent. I am not. You will see it in my business. If you looked at the last 8 years, you'll see it's like I have different. I'm just not naturally consistent person. I've had to develop that. So your strength, that is your strength. You think that it's a weakness, but it's really the strength that will keep you going beyond all the rest of us. Any other questions or aha?
I think an aha was just the amount of questions that go into this, like instead of, like you're saying, you're not going to give your opinion, you're creating these opportunities to ask the opinion so you can get into those emotions that are going to drive the sale or the purchase or whichever side you're on.
Absolutely. Your opinion only matters when they ask for it. And it's rare that they will.
I think that it's pretty interesting how we will naturally respond to somebody who is acting like us in our tone and the way that we speak and like our following of their body movements and having that attraction to them and like, oh, they get me, I get them, I want to work with them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It happens everywhere. Have you ever met somebody and you just click?
Yes.
And you're like, oh, we just connect so well. That's because they act like you. That's the only reason. You just see yourself in them and you're like, I like that, that's me. And if they acted any different than you, you would be like, I don't know, there's just something about that person I don't like. I hear it all the time. Like, I don't know, there's just something. Well, they probably just have a different personality type than you. And you don't realize that yet. It's also helped me be a lot more open to others because I used to be that person. And I'd be like, I don't know what it is about that person, I just don't like them. Well, it turns out I didn't like anybody because I'm only 10% of the population. I didn't have very many friends. And now I'm like, oh, they just have a different personality than me. It opened up the opportunity for me to like more people. And for me to understand that when somebody's walking down the hallway and I'm like, hi, how you doing? And they're not there, like they're in their head or something, I don't even care anymore. Because I'm like, oh, you know what? They're probably a D personality and they're got a lot going on. Or maybe they're an S and they just found out that some stability in their life has been crushed, right? Or they're a C type and they get figure out the math equation.
Like numbers are going.
You know what I mean? It's really allowed me to be a lot more forgiving of others. And man, when you can forgive others in spite of themselves, there's a lot less stress. A lot less stress in my life. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for showing up. This was a great time. Email me if you want that listing presentation that I used, my very simple one. Email me and I will send it to you, and then you can just copy it. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you. You're welcome. Sandwich for show.
I'm here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's a Oh, you were in the chat?
I was in there, I was doing it. I got it.
Lindsay asked, how do we, where's that chat at? How do we take dish training on a deeper level? Lindsay, I see that you're still on, honey. You should go through Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins has a disc training. Oh, you already did it. No, she wants training.
Oh, there's no,
No, that's just a
Those are
profile. She wants training.
Lindsay, can you, well,
I
I
went.
don't know if she can hear it. Oh, yeah, you can hear me, okay.
Okay, she heard us. Okay, good. Yeah, I would go through Tony Robbins, and then looking at their program.
Did he make that up or his people? I remember taking that like 20 years ago. I know he's been around a long time. Yeah, I took it like 20 years ago, and then I took it like 15 years ago, and I'm like, oh, I'm still the same person. Like I wanted something different.
You know what? When she said something like a personality test, I could have sworn I took it like
She wants
10,
cookie and
12
bacon.